at 11:37 today, so I'll probably head to the airport at like 9:45.
Nice.
Get dropped off and over. Yeah, so we're live, Rolland Market Mashup. Bob will not be with us this morning. He's flying to New Jersey. First time Bob and Kath are getting on a flight since COVID, and I'm sure Bob's freaking out. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah, hopefully that will go well. Little quick touch on the markets here. Futures are pointing to a higher open, but that comes after the market had a nice little sell-off yesterday after Trump tweeted basically implying that a deal is not happening anytime soon. And then obviously there was a series of other tweets that came in throughout the evening that implied that a deal probably is still happening. So market went from being up a couple hundred points to quickly being down a couple hundred points in the snap of a finger once Trump tweeted that whole tweet about Pelosi and just basically saying that, you know, they want too much money, they're not agreeing to a deal. And that's where we're off today. My whole thing on it is obviously you're seeing the market bounce back today. I think people are digesting the tweets, and I think people are realizing that whether or not there's a stimulus this month or next month, the election's about to be behind us, and whether or not Trump or Biden wins, right now it's looking more and more like a Biden victory. It doesn't really seem to matter because once the election's behind us, there's going to be stimulus, there's going to be infrastructure bills, there's going to be social programs, there's going to be a lot more spending than right now. And I think that might be why the market only sold off a little and this morning is looking to rally again because people are probably coming to terms with the fact that this is a big bluff and it's a poker game. And even if it continues, the election is in less than a month. So it's going to be over one way or another pretty soon.
Yeah, that's my thing we need behind us is the election. And I also, even looking at these polls, I think this data is a bit skewed. Like the polling, I was looking into it last night. The way it works is just, it doesn't actually make sense. So I don't trust these polls at all. So I don't think Biden's actually in the lead the way they're saying. And, you know, that in itself is going to cause some turmoil with the election right down the street.
Yeah, having, for whatever reason, your voice is coming in and out of here, even though I think people watching could hear it okay. But yeah,
the internet's fine.
Yeah, I think what you basically were just saying is that you think there's going to be a more contested election than people, and that it's going to be way closer than people think.
That's my concern here with the market not selling off more is that I think people, like Dad said yesterday, about there not being a discrepancy since there's such a wide margin in the polls. I don't buy that those are the actual numbers at all. When you look at the way that this data is compiled, it's not like we saw 4 years ago. It's really tough to trust polls. So I think that's why we could deal with a lot of volatility around election time if there's any type of gray area with the results, which I'm fully expecting.
Yeah, I still think that people are talking up the volatility, and it's not going to quite be anywhere near as bad as people think just because.
But we even saw it yesterday. One Trump tweet, the market's humming along up 150 and then boom, down over 300 a minute later.
Yeah.
Just him deciding, screw this.
Well, yeah, I think today is going to be interesting because I think for a while, you know, I was thinking last night, the first year and a half of Trump's term, anytime he would tweet something directly correlated to the stock market or a specific company, he would move markets. And then I think people started to realize that he's just a loose cannon. So those tweets stopped having that impact. And yesterday was really the first tweet I can remember in a long time that had that type of impact. And obviously, let's be real, people have been on the edge of their seats waiting for some sort of stimulus to get announced. We keep seeing these tweets and headlines that imply that it's literally going to happen any minute. So when we find out that it's possibly not happening at all, people are naturally going to want to reposition themselves and then kind of sit back and wait. And that clearly is what's happening today. You have the names that were doing well yesterday that sold off, jumping right back to where they were. And we can go over a few of them. I mean, first off, just to jump into individual names here, DraftKings is selling off hard this morning because they finally announced the price offering, which is going to be $52 a share, which is right where they're at right now, pre-market, 51.96. So that's going to be an interesting stock to follow. You know, they were at 64, I believe, on not Monday, but Friday. I mean, the stock's obviously done
on Friday. They hit that.
Yeah. So, Mike, I know we have not been in the stock for this last $20 movement. We both got out in the mid 40s. Is there a level where you're eyeing that you would get back in?
I would say if it could get down around a little below 50, I would look at it like that 48 maybe. It's hard for me to get back in this above $50.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was actually looking at 48 too, but then like now that I'm starting to think about it, this stock is 20% off of its highs just in 3 days.
Yeah, and I think that shows though that it was way too high to begin with, and even here it seems a bit high. Like I'm still not loving it. Yeah,
no, and then obviously Penn also is just getting dragged down because those stocks kind of trade together. They're at 67.50 this morning. Again, that stock was at, I think it got up to 75. So
yeah. Again, even here, I think that we need to see another 10% dip at least. Like if it goes below 60, I'll start considering getting back in Penn.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's so many people that are in these names that have seen the stocks just go up every single day. And there's one down day and everyone's like, oh, what's going on? Like you could see the narrative on Twitter. People just have a false idea of reality when it comes to DraftKings and Penn, thinking that these stocks literally should be going up every single day.
And that's why I think they could fall harder because people are used to them anytime they dip a little, just bouncing way harder up. So I think if that doesn't happen here, you could see more of a sell-off of people panicking that shouldn't be panicking that own it.
Yeah, I also think the whole sports gaming trade was probably a great trade coming into the fall right before the football season. And now, you know, we're well into the season and now all the other sports are about to be over. NBA. I mean, I know we talked about this a lot, but it might just not be as popular of a trade. And then
how about Beyond, Dan? I know we've talked about them a lot. You see that more news came out about their vegan cheeseburger and
this morning?
Yesterday. They're just absolutely soaring. They got a new price target raise. You know.
Do you still own it?
I don't. I got out of it at 169, but I'm going to get back in it because I think looking at this chart, they went through the resistance level of where I sold it, that 165 to 170, and it broke out. And now you got to look at this thing to break out over 200, and it could even go up to maybe 230, 240 when you look at the way this thing's acting.
Yeah, I mean, even today is going to be interesting because yesterday it obviously got kind of caught up in that afternoon sell-off, even though it still finished up about 3%. At one point, it got up to like 187. So there's one of two things. Either it gets right back to there on the open, or you start to see some profit takers because, let's be real, Beyond Meat, I mean, you've been talking about this stock since it was 125. It's really gone up like $60.
And well, keep in mind, it hit at one point last summer, it was around 240. So,
yeah, and it's also, and look, I get people could value companies any way they want. At the end of the day, Beyond Meat's being valued over 25 times sales, not even revenue. It's a massive valuation by any standards. I don't care what industry you're in, which is the same thing that we're seeing with DraftKings and Penn. So
I think the difference with Beyond, though, we see the demand is being met, and we're at the point with that stock where any news that's coming out on expanding their distribution or their product offerings, what's so unique about Beyond, they're just scratching the surface with the types of alternative meats they're even doing and who's bringing them into play. And now you see these teenagers getting behind it, which is really getting this thing to a whole nother level. These kids that are health conscious, environmentally friendly, Beyond Meat is front and center. Even the other night, Mom didn't even realize she had meat dropped off when Jeff dropped food off. It was Beyond Burgers, and she didn't even think it was.
Yeah, I saw that was one of the reasons for the upgrade yesterday. It was Generation Z possibly giving it like a nice little pop just off of the way they view the world. So
That's
yeah,
big.
look, that's been a good call, the whole Beyond trade.
Even talking to Nick yesterday, he said him and his girlfriend used it in their stir fry. This is a kid. Nick used to love steak, and now he's in the mode of like, oh, I'm eating way healthier and trying to get into this. That when someone like that is telling me they're behind this, it's just the writing's on the wall to me. Unless something comes out where the ingredients don't check out of nowhere, which I don't see happening. But and then you look at Zillow, it seems like a similar type of story.
No, definitely. And then to switch it up here and talk about the airlines for a second. So they're all getting a little look this morning because even after the Trump tweet yesterday, he then tweeted basically saying that airlines should, get their, I'll call it a bailout, basically immediately. So I think people are buying up the airlines just assuming they're going to get taken care of. And I don't know if that's very risky. I probably think it is. But you look at American Airlines, up over 50 cents this morning, which is up over 4%.
I think that's risky too. I don't like airlines.
90. Yeah, no, I know. I think it's dangerous. And also, another thing I saw this morning was the cruise lines. They keep delaying when they're setting to sail again. And this morning, they yet again delayed it even further. So now you have, I'm pretty sure they delayed them past November. I got to see what exactly it was. I got it somewhere on here. Oh, yeah, extended cruise cancellations through November 30th. And, just a few days ago, they had said through October 30th. So it seems like every couple of weeks they push it back another 30 days. This is Norwegian's doing that and Royal Caribbean's doing that. So,
I think cruise lines, travel, banks, oil, I'm staying away from all of them. I don't like any of those sectors for good business models right now. When I look at a stock, I think, is this a good ongoing business model to actually make money? I don't think any of those are.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
How about Justin keeps bringing up TDD? I know we haven't really brought them up. They're an advertising company. I know we kind of were confused on what they were last week. It seems like, not anything that's been on our radar. Justin will definitely look at it. It seems like an interesting behemoth that's gone on quite the run. Good job getting out when you did. But this thing is trading now at pre-market almost $600.
Jesus.
I mean, look at this chart.
Yeah, I mean, it really, once it broke through 500, it's just been on a rocket ship.
I haven't done any. I've got to look more into this. But it's interesting because the world we're in with digital advertising now, they're a platform that empowers buyers of digital ads. So when you remember when we had Brandon on our podcast, companies like that, this is almost like a Roku for them.
This honestly seems like a great shorting opportunity with how much the stock has run up. You look at the RSI at 80. You look at the straight line it's got on from literally 450 up to 594. Once it broke through 500, it has not had any sort of resistance.
This thing was at 160 back in March.
Yeah. So, look, that'll be something to keep an eye on, obviously. And then Ford, I know we talk about them a lot, but they're starting to get talked about a lot more. Like I saw Kramer brought them up on Mad Money last night. There's this Canadian show I like to watch that they're really good with trading and long-term investments. They started talking about Ford. Ford clearly is on a lot of different people's radars. I think people keep seeing that it has a lot of support at the 650 level. Mm-hmm. And, it's bounced off that a few different times now since we've been talking about the name. And yesterday it was really starting to take off until it sold off once the market sold off. But, this morning up 15 cents again, which is over 2% for Ford. Seems like this $7 level seems to be maybe like a new level of support for Ford. And I think there's a lot of people that are eyeing it where if it can kind of break through that 750 range, maybe it can take off and get to the mid nines, which I know is what Bob was originally saying when he first started bringing up the name. So I think there's a lot of people that are looking at that name the same way. Yeah, the same way we are.
I mean, we're both in it. Yesterday it was acting great until that Trump tweet.
It was one of the better names that I own until the Trump tweet. So that tells me.
And then you look at Dunkin' Donuts. I know you said they got a downgrade yesterday. They're up big pre-market today. These downgrades are comical to me with some of these stocks because when you hear about a Dunkin', and I know Starbucks has been getting all this great press lately. You know, I've been a Dunkin' holder for a while. They've been just acting great.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those names that you would think isn't really going to get hit too hard on a bad market or necessarily go up too much in a good market, just a steady name.
I'm just shocked that they don't get talked about enough because they're not only a steady name, they're a phenomenal stock and great dividend. It's just a great anchor that seems to just never, it gets kind of just thrown under the radar every time. Starbucks is always the company talked about.
Or McDonald's, who just announced this morning that they're adding new baked goods to their menu, which they haven't done that type of addition in 8 years.
What, Dunkin'?
No, McDonald's. They're going to be adding apple fritters, blueberry muffins, and cinnamon rolls to their all-day.
I think that's very smart.
Yeah.
When you look at McDonald's, like we talked about when they did that all-day breakfast for a bit, which I don't understand the dynamics there, why that went away the way it did. But they need to, I think, bring that back with full vengeance. Like we've seen what Starbucks has done with that, with their breakfast offerings. People love breakfast. They love breakfast tapas. And I'm a bit biased because I love that stuff, but I know everyone does. That whole casual on-the-go breakfast sandwich or wrap. Who doesn't like that, Dan?
No, I'm with you. DraftKings now under 52 at 51.88. I'm going to actually make a day trade on this stock right when the market opens. Probably, I have no idea, but we'll see. Seems like a stock that's going to be all over the place. And then
I think those are coming down more.
Yeah, I mean, I think Penn is the one that probably right off the bat might have more downroom to come. For those of you who own Penn, keep in mind that they did their offering 2 weeks ago at 63 a share. And it seems like that went a lot better than what's happening with DraftKings because they basically ripped through those shares in about a day. And, you know, if you were short Penn, you had a nice solid day there to cover your short before it quickly went right back up to 70. So this might be your second chance here with Penn to either get out of a short or get in long, or, you know, maybe this is what the shorts were seeing the whole time, which is
I'd be careful with Penn here. Even looking at this chart, I kind of feel like this thing has a little more room to come down. The way it seems like it's kind of drifted a bit, and now it's in an interesting territory because if it falls a bit more here, this thing could get down to 50, 55.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could make the argument that Penn, based on valuation, should be in the mid-40s. So
that's personally what I think. You know, I had a hard time staying in that stock after it was close to 50.
No, for sure. And then another stock that we never talk about on here, but is on the radar this morning, is Sirius XM, which the stock ticker's Siri. So they're up about 20 cents pre-market, which is 3.6%, and they are about to sign a new deal with Howard Stern, which is going to pay the radio host about $120 million per year. Whew.
How do we start getting paid for bootstrapped for that?
I know. They also announced a 10% dividend increase, and Credit Suisse gave them an upgrade to outperform from neutral based on a surprisingly better than expected results. I do want to throw in there that just following what happens on Twitter closely and how that might impact stocks. I saw last night something from Portnoy that implied that Siri and Barstool are about to cut ties with each other. I don't know what kind of partnership they have up to this point, but something basically saying that Siri and Portnoy couldn't be further apart, and like Barstool always does, their followers will follow them wherever they go, and they're going to have to switch platforms. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow. They obviously own a lot of the most popular podcasts in the world right now, and that could be kind of a sell for Siri if that actually happens. But I don't know too much about that. But, yeah, Siri will be an interesting stock. And,
I got in Spotify last week. That's really my anchor for the whole podcast movement. And
I think that's a good anchor. And I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, I picked up this stock, Liberty Media, which is LSX.
Yeah, I was in that with you briefly. That was one of the Buffett.
Yeah, and that stock, I still own it, and it's getting a little look this morning. But to be honest, it's been kind of a dud. I've been thinking whether or not I should just dump it and just.
I don't really. It's hard to. I don't think the pandemic has necessarily been good for those types of companies with advertising. When you look at their clientele and just cutting back expenses, I think that's one of the first things to go.
Yeah, no, and I also think that people's podcasts were huge before the pandemic, and I think now live streaming has kind of taken over podcasts as people aren't driving around as much.
Big time.
Yeah, I know. I personally am not really listening to podcasts the same way that I was, so that'll be an interesting stock to follow today. Netflix got a price target increase today of 650, which is a street high.
I was thinking about buying. I've never owned Netflix, Dan. So I was thinking today, even when I woke up, about them, just with the weather turning and, this whole stay at home mindset everyone's in.
Yeah.
Naturally, you got to think that sentiment helps them.
And if you're just, camp of someone that thinks that the market is eventually going to keep trucking and get back to all-time highs with tech being what leads, that's what ultimately got us here. And, more stimulus is coming and which companies are going to have a positive impact. Netflix, you would think that $650 price target could easily be met even this year with the way the market is, So that's where I've been big on Netflix. I picked up a lot when they were down in that 470 range, and they've been slowly ticking up. And yeah, I like that they got an upgrade this morning. Hopefully they start to get more attention because their stock's been somewhat neutral up until pretty recently when it started to trend up. Another stock that I've never even heard of, but I guess they're a big alcohol company. Have you ever heard of Molson Coors? The tickers. You have?
Yeah, Molson Coors, yeah.
Yeah, what are the liquor lines that they do that I would know? Because
Molson is huge in itself.
Well, got you. Well, Guggenheim names the beer brewer one of its best ideas in replacing Pepsi and put a buy.
They're the world's 5th largest brewer.
Got you. Well, they have a bunch of seltzer products, apparently. Again, I don't know much about them. I just know that they got a nice little upgrade this morning and aren't really trading on much volume, but I figure I'd bring them up because it's a name that we've never.
They've made a lot of acquisitions. They got into the craft beer market a few years ago, and they operate through Molson Coors North America now, which formerly was Miller Coors, and they, they clearly have a lot going on. It's hard, I used to own Budweiser a while ago, and I got out of it once this whole low-calorie movement started and people were more trending towards THC. And, I've been big on the psychedelic stock movement. I'm more looking ahead with that stuff, and I'm not the whole beer game. I know they're adapting, but I'd rather just play a Coca-Cola at that point.
Yeah, especially with Coca-Cola entering the seltzer space themselves. They just announced that a month ago.
That's why, I love, I haven't owned it in a little, but Mandalay snacks with the smaller, 100-calorie snacks they do, I think is very clever.
Yeah, I also think Constellation Brands, ticker STZ, is a good alcohol name. They own Corona. They also are big in the marijuana space, where if that ends up taking off, they are big investors in that. So that's a company I've always liked. Mike, how about the Tesla thing? Yesterday somebody was driving and I guess the top of their Tesla just blew off. And apparently Tesla workers an email that employees sabotaged part of their factory last month. I don't know if that had something to do with what happened with the car. And I don't think that's going to really have any impact on the stock, but just kind of a crazy story.
Tesla. If you look at how Tesla, it's kind of at a spot here that I think this thing could fall a bit more.
Look, at the end of the day, if you take away the split, this is still over $2,000 a share. So I think there's a lot of people that look at it like this stock is still in complete outer space. But I also think there's a lot of people that think that it can go way higher.
Yeah, it could. I mean, with Elon Musk, they are in outer space, and they'll probably find a new space. That's the thing with that guy. Like, he is a next level thinker that people can't even fathom.
That was one of the things that was actually funny when we were talking about that chat month. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy who owns Golden State Warriors, sometimes on CNBC, he's like the Indian American guy, obviously super paid, has done great in the markets. He was on CNBC yesterday in the morning, and they were asking him about like basically how like the Winklevoss twins are saying that, you know, gold's going to get destroyed and Bitcoin's going to go through the roof because of what Elon Musk is doing with like mining on space. And he was like, honestly, I have no idea what they're talking about. He was like, I wish I could say I knew. Like, he's like, I just have no idea.
When they said that, it almost seemed like they wanted to come off as so conceited, where they understood things people don't. And Portnoy was just like, wait, what?
Yeah, hearing him yesterday even say that when he was like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
That was just the way when they broke that down, it was like, guys, this is not the way to get people on Bitcoin. Like, now you're just talking like lunatics,
spitting complete BS.
Yeah, like even when I heard that, I was like, maybe I should sell a little of this. Like, what the hell are these guys talking about?
I know. I'm totally with you. It made no sense to me. And then Fiverr, who this stock is just unbelievable, but they are planning to offer $400 million in convertible bonds that'll mature in 2025, which is probably going to have no impact on this stock at all, but it could. I mean, I would
like you said yesterday, this pandemic has expedited their model. Freelance economy is here forever at this point, and they should just keep going on a rocket ship. I would put this in a beyond Zillow group. And I got to get back in this stock. It's just hard to buy in here. But I hate saying that to myself when stocks are at all-time highs. Like we've talked about on this show for our viewers, that doesn't mean it's not a good time to buy. If the company is on the right trajectory and you have conviction about what they're doing, don't be afraid to buy a stock because it's at an all-time high. That doesn't necessarily mean it can't break out way more.
Yeah, maybe just don't take on the full position and take part of it. I always kind of go back and forth in my head about looking at a chart and seeing like, oh, this thing's run up a lot, it's overbought, but then kind of sitting back and just looking at the market cap and looking at the space and then thinking long term and thinking like, wait, is this actually still completely undervalued just in the world that we're in, where we're heading, and you know what this could ultimately become? And that's where sometimes I could look at a name like Fiverr and convince myself that that stock's going to more than 10 times where it is now, or just get a nice acquisition. I've always thought that.
That could easily happen.
Go back to DraftKings for a second here, because they've already traded now over 7 million shares pre-market, and they're hovering above 52. I think, you know, it wouldn't shock me if this share offering that they did of 32 million shares, it's about to be done, where, you know, there's so much interest in this name that you could see those shares quickly be gone. And like the same thing that happened with Penn. It wouldn't shock me if you see this stock start to rally a little today. Just off of the offerings done, the shares are out, and, you know, the name trades in such high volume, people are going to be buying the dip. It could cause this stock to go up today. I would be careful having a short under 52, that's for sure. But
yeah, those stocks it seems like the FOMO effect with Penn and DraftKings is just at a whole nother level with people, where they just feel obligated to be in it.
Yeah. And
Boozy has been acting crazy. That stock is all over the place. Yesterday when Dad texted us, it was up to 475 and then dipped all the way down to like 439 after the Trump tweet.
Yeah, every time I look at Boozy, it seems to always be at 450, even though like it seems like it's up every day.
Well, it's reaching new support levels. It was the 425 that we saw it at. Now it's 450. This thing, that's why I can't get out of it. Something tells me this thing's going way higher, the way it's been acting.
Well, folks, in my opinion, you saw this rally this morning, and there's Larry Kudlow on TV right now. I feel like at this point when he comes on TV, people just know that he's trying to perk up markets and that the markets are in trouble.
Keep in mind, we're right by the election. There's going to be a lot of like steps, ups and downs that are mini rallies and quick dips, and just pick your times. And if, you know, like Dan said earlier, if you like a stock long-term a lot, just get in a little position to follow it and add to it.
You can make the argument that the market really has not done anything in a month. It's just been completely chop, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily. I think we're in a holding pattern until this election's over, really.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And with that, have a good day. I will be flying back to Charleston today, and
Dan will be back in Charleston tomorrow on air
with awful internet, most likely.
And who knows where I'll be? All right, folks, make some money.